Jennifer Gentry. We're at 718 Van Treese Road in Madison, and it's April 5th, 2012.
Jennifer's involvement in Madison is seen through community action as well as steps she takes in her own backyard. Although public activism is needed to improve the area, Jennifer and her family are already making progress through measures of healthy food, active lifestyles, and creating value systems.
Madison is the area proximal to Amqui train station. I think of that as the center of Madison, and then that area of Gallatin that's adjacent to it. The Madison Public Library, that's kind of the center of it. So it goes out both directions from Gallatin. I always think of it as being bound by 65 because that's where we are, kind of boxed in. But it goes out further than that. Well, we weren't familiar with Madison before. We had lived in East Nashville for 10 years and then moved to Boston. And when we came back, we came here. So we weren't as familiar with Madison when we moved here. So we're still just learning a lot more about Madison. And then our family had grown by 2 kids, so we needed more space than what we had. An acre of land that we could do things like we put in the garden, and we've been constantly working on our acre since we came here, and we really liked the option of doing that here, and do a lot of gardening, and we always have projects. My husband and I built the deck and the outdoor kitchen, and we're going to be redoing the pool area, so we have lots of projects around the house. So we spend most of our time here. I think they think of it as Madison's glory days. I think it kind of slid downhill for quite a while. People are overweight, and most people smoke. And you go to the grocery store, and it's Aldi or Kroger. There's Aldi and there's Kroger, but it's our produce selection at our Kroger is just disgusting. Everything's gross, and it's really unfair, because if you're not used to eating those foods and you go and you see spinach that's all wilted and gross, you're not going to want to eat it, and everyone just buys packaged foods with everything. We've got a local donut shop, which we love to go there, and he's been great in helping donating stuff for the community garden, and we love it because it's in our community. It's a family-owned business, but it looks terrible. I thought about going and offering to plant some stuff for him. It's there on Gallatin, and it looks awful, and it would be so easy to make it look nicer. But all of the businesses along there are like that, and it's got so much potential, not the donut shop, but right down the center part with what was the old downtown. It's beautiful old buildings, but most of them are vacant now, and what is there is pawn shops, or there's some real estate businesses, but even those, they're not small businesses. But then I just think of all the places on Gallatin, and there's a lot of not very nice business. There's a lot of pawn shops, and Jenna's Toy Box is one that I love having to explain to the kids what that means when we drive down Gallatin. And then fast food restaurants. And then beautifying what we have. Even things like the Madison Library, they had landscaping there, and with the budget cuts, despite the fact that Nashville is putting money into Madison, they just quit taking care of it and let it get overrun by grass. And then they have these beautiful saucer magnolia trees, and they just send somebody out to hack them down every once in a while, and it's a shame that it needs community involvement to make it better. We have neighbors who, and there's a lot of people that are retired and unemployed. I love here, our neighbor is like a grandparent to our kids, and when we've got a neighbor over there she's about 90, and she makes all this stuff and brings it over to us, and it's just really nice. I think it's really enriching, especially for the kids, to have a lot of older people around. One thing about Madison, there's a spirit of freedom in Madison, which is entertaining and nice too. Neighbor 2 doors down, he's a German gentleman. He survived World War II as a child in Nazi Germany, and he's a fascinating guy, but he is hilarious. At least once a week, he's out there burning a big pile of something. He's been taken to the hospital before too, because he had severe burns on himself. But there's definitely a spirit, and the neighbor across the street that used to live there, he was burning something once, and it got really out of control. It got close to his house, and we were watching it, and we were thinking, it was shortly after we moved in, and someone called the fire department, and he ended up getting fined. And all of my neighbors were all abuzz, like, who would call the fire department? Like, I didn't do it, but I can understand why somebody did. But there's definitely this feeling of freedom that people should be able to do whatever they want, and which I appreciate, and it, like I said, it can be entertaining. The train station is wonderful. I don't know how well utilized it is by the community at this point, but it's wonderful. And the Madison Public Library is great. It's a really great library. And all of that is right there together. We have Cedar Hill Park, which I think got, in a Nashville Scene article, got one of the worst parks in Nashville. Oh, no. In my grand hopes, I'd love to have some classes pulling from some of the older people at 50 Forward and young people from the library, and to teach them about gardening, or even just about food and how to be able to eat fresh food. We try to go to the Inglewood Kroger because it's a mile away, but every time I go there I'm so frustrated. Sidewalks, there's no sidewalks. We really miss that about East Nashville, being able to walk around. And we used to walk up to Kroger all the time, but people are zooming by on their cars, and it's difficult. So it's not a typical community garden, and this is where the challenge of trying to connect people in the neighborhood has come in. So people get really excited about a community garden, and then when it's over, there's nobody to take care of it. So what we did instead was designed a plan that's all fruit and nut trees and shrubs. And that way it's very low maintenance, and we did design some beds. We put in some beds and tulips to make it pretty, and some other, whenever I find cheap plants at Lowe's that I think will work well, we put them in there, and like mint and rosemary and things like that. Another 10 years, I think it'll be great, but it's a long-term project. And so for now, really, we had a couple of great work days where we had some homeschool groups, but also just some other really friends of our family, and some people from the Madison Chamber that came out to help plant the trees, and the mayor came out too, which was nice. But now we're not expanding it at all until if we get a group in the community that is committed to doing something else with it. Because, I mean, number one, I don't want to impose my vision of it on the community. It needs to be the community that decides what to do with it from here. But at least it's a foundation, it's a start, and all I have to do is go every once in a while and water the trees, and try to keep the Bermuda grass out of it. Just keep the trees alive for a few years, and then they'll take care of themselves. So.
As the community moves forward, they can further their sense of camaraderie to create positive change.
The Madison Chamber of Commerce is great, and all the things associated with that. I think there's a real strong, it hasn't really been pulled together, I don't think, well for the community. Like, we don't have a listserv to notify people of things that are going on. In the town center, there's still space right behind the Madison Library that is just open green space. I think there's a basketball court over there, and that's pretty well utilized. But having something there that people could go to exercise or play, or having a park in that spot would be great. But doing something to get people out and moving around in that area. One of the reasons that I wanted to start the community garden, I hope at some point to have some educational programs between also in that same area there's a 50 Forward, which is the over 50, I don't know what, community center, I guess. So that's right there also. And the Madison Library, which is really well utilized. So definitely the leadership in the community is definitely working toward that. I went to I think it was the first meeting that they had with the Civic Design Center, and that definitely seemed to be the focus, getting mixed use stuff. And they had a beautiful plan for that area that I think would help a lot.
Jennifer's children have taken after their mother, demonstrating a true regard for nature and a genuine love for it. This sort of individual action has the ability to foster growth among those that spread it. Jennifer's family is a true model that shows the potential of Madison's residents and the change that can be seen in their community.